We're just under 2 weeks away from the annual Money in the Bank pay-per-view, but the Red Brand has already set up all of its storylines for the show. So last night's Raw was all about keeping things moving and making each feud more important. After taking a brutal chop block to the back of her knee from Rhea Ripley last week, Charlotte Flair requested time to address her status on the show. The Miz also secured a non-wrestling segment for a special Money in the Bank edition of Miz TV. His guests were all four men in the men's Money in the Bank match from Raw: Ricochet, John Morrison, Riddle, and Drew McIntyre. Riddle and Morrison, or Ricochet and Morrison, met for a rematch after both men were counted out during their encounter last week. And we also saw WWE Champion Bobby Lashley team up with MVP to face Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston in a main event tag team bout. Let's take a look at everything that happened on last night's edition of Monday Night Raw, on this special Tuesday night edition of Ridiculously Raw. Welcome, everybody, to this special Tuesday night edition of Ridiculously Raw, right here on YouTube and StreamYard.com. I am your host, Anthony Florio, joined as always by good old MF Michael Fletcher. We are awaiting the presence of the Phenom Michael Bullock. If he comes in, we'll catch him up on what he missed. If not, then we'll hopefully have him tomorrow night for a very exciting edition of Wednesday Night Mayhem. Probably the most exciting and anticipated Wednesday Night Mayhem in quite some time, if you know what I mean. But anyways, as you know, we usually do this show on Monday nights, but last night, because of circumstances beyond our control, MF, as the EP of this show, decided to push the show back to this time tonight, and rightfully so. And that's why we're on tonight. So, with all that being said, let's dive right on in. This is the second to last Monday Night Raw from the Thunderdome. I am beyond done with the damn Thunderdome, but it is what it is. We're almost there. We just gotta deal with a couple more shows, and then it's for real, as we say. So, not much more to say. We started it off with that special Money in the Bank edition of Miz TV, with the four men's Money in the Bank match participants. All hell broke loose afterward, and it led into a 2-for-1 deal. It led into Ricochet versus John Morrison, the rematch from last week. And John Morrison wins the match via a countout in 13 minutes and 10 seconds. All right. As far as the segment goes, this was a typical segment WWE likes to run before big multi-person matches. Everyone gets tougher, throws out a few insults, and gets into a fight. The brawl started awkwardly as everyone just sat around waiting until it was their turn to get involved. It was clunky, but at least it didn't lead to a 6-man tag match, which is usually what would happen in a situation like this. Other than the drip stick shenanigans, this is the match now. The match between Ricochet and Morrison was as good as you would expect it to be. They have great chemistry, dating back to their days in Lucha Underground. Yes, let's not forget. I can't believe I let this slip my mind last week, but then again, you can't blame me after, I think we were all caught up in the excitement of that epic move. But these two have history, and good old MF Michael Fletcher will tell you this firsthand. These two go back to Lucha Underground. Johnny Mundo versus what Ricochet was known as down there, Prince Puma, and had a mask on. And boy, howdy, did they have some wars. I'll tell you that right now. And MF will, I'm sure, address that when we get to him. But they have great chemistry and know how to space out their high spots, so they have the biggest impact. Count-out finishes are rarely the right call, but this one worked to keep this feud going without making either competitor look weak. Ricochet will probably even the score next week during the go-home edition of Raw before Money in the Bank and the final Monday Night Raw inside the Thunderdome, and it will be a taped show. They actually taped it today, and it was announced that next week, Ricochet and John Morrison will go at it one more time, but this time, those two are gonna go one-on-one in one of the most exciting matches in WWE, and that is Falls Count Anywhere. Falls Count Anywhere in that Thunderdome. So, oh boy. what these two are capable of. You thought last week and last night were great. Imagine what next week's going to be like. That's all there is to say. I will probably give this about 3 to 3.25 stars for the effort. One of the top fights of the night for sure, without a doubt. So there isn't much more to say. MF, the segment was, so-so. But Ricochet and Morrison, what can you say about these two? Dating back to the Lucha Underground days. You better than anybody know this. Prince Puma and Johnny Lithgow. Come on.
Yeah, no doubt about it. This was a good rivalry, no doubt about it. It was a good battle. There's really nothing more to add here, and yeah, I don't think there was anything wrong or anything that would be stated. So yeah, absolutely correct. You definitely have a very valid point here. Um, yeah, and there's really nothing more to add. So this was about a 3.25, 3.5 star match, and I really got nothing else to add. So yeah, Anthony is yours.
How about that Falls Count Anywhere match next week?
Oh, I'm excited for that one because of the fact of what these two men could bring to the table, and I hope that they do get the ample time and that they do this right because
Amen.
honestly, this would be a heck of a match.
Absolutely. So, but that's next week. Getting back to last night, a lot of backstage stuff, and then we had an 8-woman tag team matchup. All four female competitors from Monday Night Raw in the women's Money in the Bank ladder match: Alexa Bliss, Asuka, Naomi, and Nikki Cross squared off against Eva Marie, Doudrop, Shayna Baszler, and Nia Jax. And the heel team wins the match in an even 12 minutes. Nia Jax scores the win on Nikki Ash. That's her new name now. She's now known as Nikki Ash. And MF, all I can say is, so much for Nikki Ash's momentum. Boy, howdy, this was not a good loss to take. I don't think so.
No, it wasn't. It was not a good loss to take. But the thing is that I think they're just trying to, it's one loss. I don't think it's anything about it or anything that would really hurt her in the long term. But I really want to see why, where this goes. You can have a bad loss here and there. I don't think it's the end of the world, but yeah, if this was a bad loss you didn't want to take. This was about 2.5 stars for the effort, but it was all over the place. There was a moment where it looked like Alexa. Well, like I said, it was all over the place, but we'll see how it plays out. At the end of the day, Anthony is yours.
Yeah, I think that's about right. 2 to 2.5 stars. Nikki's new gimmick is still rough around the edges, but her enthusiasm and energy are going to help her get this over eventually. It's hard to tell if the same can be said for Eva Marie and Doudrop at this point. If Eva is going to be this over-the-top heel character, WWE needs to let her give more promos. If she's not going to wrestle much, she needs to get over using her personality. Even if it doesn't work, WWE should at least try if it's going to invest time and money into her character. The more people you add to a tag match, the harder it is to tell a good story. These bouts tend to follow a pattern, and this was no exception. Having Nikki take the loss was a surprising move, and that's why I mentioned what I mentioned. It's a surprising move considering the push WWE has given her in recent weeks. Overall, it was a mostly forgettable bout. So, yeah, I agree. About 2 to 2.5 for that. But I don't know why, but I've got this feeling that she might win. She might end up winning the women's Money in the Bank ladder match, and we'll talk about that on the July 16th edition of the Cerebral Smack Talk, which of course will be the most. It'll be the most exciting Cerebral Smack Talk probably since WrestleMania week, because that's the night when WWE returns to fans and with the SmackDown, and we will also preview the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. So, and who knows how much more, but that's down the road. But for right now, let's continue on. with our action here. We had Mustafa Ali squaring off against Mansoor, and Mustafa Ali wins in 2 minutes and 55 seconds. I'm sorry, this got rushed for time. I'm sorry. I mean, when I saw it was going to be these two, I was excited because I thought these two could easily deliver a banger of a fight, but unfortunately, they did not. They got pressed for time, only about 3 minutes. Ali and Mansoor didn't have enough time to do anything remarkable, but what we did see gives hope that a longer match between these two could be a show stealer. The way Ali won was underhanded and cheap, which is exactly what he needed to do to prove his point to the man he is trying to mentor, that Mansoor must be more aggressive. Judging from the look on Mansoor's face after he lost, the message got through loud and clear. This is a fresh feud with two guys who haven't had a lot of screen time this year, and let's hope WWE allows this to play out. So this will go into the cutout files, about 1.5 to 2 for the effort. But we have history here when it comes to this next matchup. We had Drew McIntyre squaring off against Jinder Mahal. Jinder Mahal had his new cronies with him, Veer and Shanky, formerly of Indus year. Drew McIntyre wins the match via disqualification, 10 minutes and 20 seconds. It might surprise some people to hear this, but this was actually a decent fight. I mean, Mahal and McIntyre can match each other physically at every turn. That allowed them to have a competitive match. The DQ finish was an odd choice, but if WWE actually intends on pushing Mahal and his cronies, then this helps him without McIntyre having to sacrifice a win. If Drew McIntyre does not win the Money in the Bank briefcase, which I'm going to be honest with you, I'd be shocked if that happens because he's my pick as of now. This might be a feud we might see continue. It would do more for Mahal than McIntyre, but that might be the point. WWE needs more top stars on Monday Night Raw, and it makes sense to start with a former WWE champion, even if he wasn't exactly the most popular champion or the best champion, if I'm going to be honest with you. I consider him one of the worst, if not the worst. So that's all I can say on this. So I'd probably give this about 2.5 to 2 3/4 of a star for the effort. So not much more to say. MF, your thoughts on all that?
2.5 is my rating for it. Yeah, it was actually a pleasant surprise. I think we all were thinking, McIntyre easy in the squash, and no, you got to give a lot of credit where credit was due. Incredible battle and a great outcome. We kind of poo-poo over DQ finishes, but I won't poo-poo over it here because it actually served its purpose. So nothing more to say. Anthony, it's yours.
All right. Another one for the cutout files here. We had Mason T-Bar squaring off against the Lucha House Party, and the Lucha House Party win the match in 3.5 minutes. What do I have here? Raw has needed to build up some new tag teams for months. Ever since AJ Styles and Omos won the Raw tag team titles at WrestleMania, the division has been all but dead. Using these two teams to create some competition is a good place to start. This match was short and mostly uneventful, but it did have a couple of memorable spots. Mace throwing Dorado out of the ring was a brutal bump that the Golden Lynx sold beautifully. It's hard to tell why WWE isn't pushing Mace and T-Bar as more of a threat to the champions. They are big dudes who move like much smaller competitors, and they could have some great matches with Styles and Omos. Lucha House Party should also be getting pushed, but WWE has had years to do that and never seems to follow through. So let's not hold our breath and wait for that to happen. About another 1.5 to 2 for this. So I'm not gonna, really get much more into it. But we'll definitely follow this up. We had Riddle squaring off against the phenomenal AJ Styles, and Riddle, he wins the match in an even 13 minutes. MF, no big surprise. When you hear Riddle and AJ Styles, we're in for something special.
Yeah, you're in for a fight of the night level. I don't know if it is fight of the night, but it was a solid match and a solid 3 to 3.5 stars, at least 3.5 for me. This is a great battle, great matchup, and I really enjoyed how this played out more than anything else. So yeah, you're absolutely right. 3.5 stars. This was an absolute joy, to say the very least. Nothing more to say. Anthony, it's yours.
Yeah, agreed. Riddle did a good job of selling his ankle injury as if he was really in excruciating pain. He never ignored the injury and made it part of everything he did. Even a little detail like tripping during an Irish whip helped make it more convincing. Styles is great at the classic tactic of focusing on one body part and tearing it to pieces. It was even better because his signature submission focuses on the lower leg. It's just too bad he never got to use it. Um, the distraction finish was meant to keep the feud between the champs and the Viking Raiders going, but it felt a little excessive after we already had a count-out, DQ, and Ali's roll-up victory in the same show. The match was good, but the finish was less than ideal. 3.25 to 3.5 stars. And it was announced that on that taped show next week, Omos will have his very first singles match in WWE. He's going to go up against, I believe, Eric of the Viking Raiders, and AJ Styles is also going to square off against Ivar. So we're going to see all that next week, in addition to Ricochet and Morrison in a Falls Count Anywhere match. And on top of that, we're going to see Sheamus defend the United States Heavyweight Championship against Humberto Carrillo. So we'll see. So that all goes down next week and whatever else they decide to throw at us. So not much more to say here. Then we had Charlotte Flair, the segment, interrupted by Rhea Ripley. And it was just there, nothing really came out of this. I mean, it was kind of a pointless segment. I mean, it didn't really lead to anything. And but the big question always, we're all asking the same question when it comes to this feud. Who is creative? Who does creative want us to root for? Do they want us to root for the Queen, or do they want us to root for the Nightmare? I don't know. We're just gonna have to figure it out. But so segment, nothing really special. So we're not gonna bother with it. Then we had Cedric Alexander and Elias against Jackson Ryker and R-Truth. Jackson Ryker and R-Truth win the match in an even 1 minute. This was the worst. This was hands down the worst fight of the night. This was an absolute dud. Poor Cedric Alexander. He deserves better than this. There's not much else that can be said about this match. It was short, did nothing to push the feud forward, and made one of the most talented high flyers in WWE look like a scrub, as far as I'm concerned. And then throw in the 24/7 BS. I mean, nah, honey, no. Absolute dud, hands down the worst fight of the night. We are not even going to we're not even going to dignify that with any response. So, with that being said, let's get to our main event here. The big tag team main event, WWE Champion Bobby Lashley and MVP squaring off against Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods. Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods, they win the match in an even 15 minutes. Kofi Kingston, Trouble in Paradise on MVP to win the match. This, to me, was the fight of the night. This was a solid main event that fit within the ongoing storyline between these four men, but it was just a stop on the way to the pay-per-view. This won't be remembered in a few weeks, however. Xavier Woods continues to prove he is one of the most underrated stars on the roster with each passing week. No matter what WWE gives him to do, he knocks it out of the park. MVP taking the loss protects Lashley while giving Kingston a boost. It was the only logical outcome, and that's really all there is to say on this. Solid 3.5, teetering on 3 3/4. But I think it was more like 3.5 to me. But this was the fight of the night, though, so not much more to say. MF, even though Kofi scored the fall on MVP, it's still momentum regardless.
Oh yeah, absolutely. 3.5 stars, no doubt about it. Incredible match. And like you said, momentum for Kofi. So, nothing more to add. Anthony, it's yours.
All right, MF, let's start it off with you for our overall review. Another average so-so show last night.
I could say 6.5. I'll give you the average on that one. It could have been a little more better, but it was solid for what it was worth. really nothing more to say as Mike Bullock has just arrived. So, Anthony, you know what to do. So set it up
Yes,
for him.
I do indeed know what to do, and we're going to do that. So before I
First
do, let
off,
me give you.
sports fellas,
Yes, Bullet.
happy 4th, you guys.
Yeah, happy 4th. Happy 4th. Absolutely. Um, let me get into my thoughts on last night's show. It was about a 5.5 to 6. I mean, last night's show as a whole was right down the middle. It had some fun moments, some head scratchers, and a few potential new feuds. It was a forgettable episode. I mean, you could consider it somewhat of a holiday throwaway show. It's definitely missable if you turn this into a long holiday weekend and have the show on DVR. Like I said, the only real positive, the biggest positive out of all this is that there's only after with this now, there's only one more. We only have to endure one more Raw inside the Thunderdome, and then the preliminaries will be over, and it'll soon be time for the main event. So that's all there is to say on that. One more week of preliminaries, tape show nonetheless. Joy, but we'll see. So I would probably give that I probably would give it about a 5.5 to 6. So not the best, but not the worst. So even though it kind of felt like a throwaway show. So not much more to say. Michael Bullock, come on in here. We're only going to talk about the relevant stuff, as you know. So that's what we're going to do. You had the opening Miz TV segment. That's optional. If you want to, you can. If you don't, that's fine. But Ricochet versus John Morrison. John Morrison winning via countout 13 minutes and 10 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say that the Miz TV segment, I mean, it was fine. I mean, it wasn't anything that special to write home about. I mean, but as far as the match between Ricochet and John Morrison, I'll give it an even 3 stars. I mean, I could have given it a little higher, but the countout did take away a little bit from it. But all in all, I thought this was still an enjoyable match. So, yeah, there's really nothing more to say, Florio.
Yeah, and then we had the 8-woman tag team match: Alexa Bliss, Asuka, Naomi, and Nikki Ash versus Eva Marie, Doudrop, Shayna Baszler, and Nia Jax. The heel team wins in an even 12 minutes. Nia Jax scored the winning fall on Nikki Ash.
What was the time
12
again?
minutes. 12 minutes.
All right. I'll give this about another 2.5 to 3, to say the very least. Even though I'm leaning more towards 2.5, as far as I'm concerned here. I mean, like I said, another match that I thought was fine for what it was, but nothing really special to write home about. So yeah, that's all I got to say on it.
Very good. Then from there, Drew McIntyre versus Jinder Mahal. Drew McIntyre wins by disqualification, 10 minutes and 20 seconds.
Again, I'll say it. Another 2.5 star rating. I mean, it could have been better, but what else would you expect with Jinder Mahal? So, yeah, there's really nothing more to say on it. So, onward, Florio.
Riddle versus AJ Styles. Riddle wins the match, even 13 minutes.
I'll give this about 3, maybe 3.25. I mean, just based on the body of work of these, of what these two are capable of. So, yeah. So, yeah. So that's all I gotta say on it.
All right, and then the main event: Bobby Lashley and MVP against Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods. Kofi and Xavier win the match in an even 15 minutes.
I'll have to say by a slim margin, this to me was the fight of the night here. I'll give this about 3.5 stars, just because of what Kofi and Xavier could bring. But yeah, I mean, and this was the first time, Florio, that MVP has been in the ring in a while. So yeah, and I thought he looked okay, but I think he needs a little more fine tuning. if I'm going to be quite honest with you. But yeah, I mean, a nice win for Kofi and Xavier. It gives Kofi a little momentum going into his WWE title bout. So that's all I gotta say on it. And as far as the rating for this show, I'm gonna give this a 5 out of 10 as well. I mean, it did have the feel of a throwaway, but you know what? I'm gonna give them a pass because look, I mean, it was the 4th of July holiday. I mean, if this was like last week, then I would have poo-pooed all over it. But because this was a holiday show, I mean, I'll give them a pass on this. But all I can say is next week's final Raw before at the Thunderdome, it better be a good show. But let's be honest, we all know it ain't gonna be. But you never know. They could surprise us, even though it is a taped show. But I still think you never know. I mean, they could surprise us. So all I can say is can't wait for this Thunderdome era to be over, and then it's back on the road, folks.
Amen to that. Yeah, no more pumped in crowd noise or pumped in sound effects.
But you gotta give WWE credit. I mean, they needed to do something to entertain the fans during these tough times that we had to go through over the year and a half.
Yeah. So I'm just glad it's over. And you know, speaking of taped shows, I mean, there's only one taped show that ever really surprised us, and it was last Christmas. You remember that Christmas edition of SmackDown that absolutely knocked it out?
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's going to be that good. I don't think it's going to be that good, but I hope and pray that it is. And I mean, 2 matches have potential. I mean, you're going to have Ricochet and John Morrison, Falls Count Anywhere. I believe that's going to steal the damn show. I really believe it will. And then Sheamus will defend the United States Heavyweight Championship against Humberto Carrillo. And we'll have the tag team champions and their potential challengers in separate singles matches. Omos against Eric and AJ Styles against Ivar. So that's all on tap for next week's taped show. So with all that being said, let's get into my Tony's take quickly. Impact Wrestling from last week. We started off with Satoshi Kojima and Jake Something against Brian Myers and Sam Beal. Kojima and Jake Something win the match. 2.5 stars, solid fundamental tag team work, though having your big monster and Jake Something be the face in peril was kind of an odd choice. I'm not a fan of the bait and switch matches. It's kind of a cheap tactic, but all 4 men worked well together. Tenille Dashwood against Rachel Ellering. Rachel Ellering wins the match, 2 stars. Ellering was a bit sloppy in a few spots, which knocks the rating down a peg, but that's mostly, you know, my being, you know, a little on the harsh side. There's some decent chemistry between these two, though, and it was far from a bad match. Then we had TJP and Falaba against Willie Mack and Rich Swann. Fight gets thrown away. No contest, so it's an NA, really. Then we had Chris Bay against Petey Williams. Chris Bay wins the match, 2.5 stars. A nice nonstop action style match. Williams and Bay work very well together. Then we had a lot of post-match stuff with Ace Austin and Rohit, Mahabali Shera, Madman Fulton, and all the brawls go in and all that. But that's all there is to say there. Leading to that X Division match. Steve Macklin against Manny Smith. Steve Macklin wins the match. Delicious squash that sent us to the break. And Steve Macklin, I'll let you know, Steve Macklin happens to be the former Steve Cutler from WWE. For all of you Forgotten Sons fans out there, you remember Steve Cutler. That's him. And they're turning him into a monster badass heel right now. And they keep doing this with him. He could be a big star for them. And then WWE will regret getting rid of him. And then in the main event, the big main event, Team Don Callis, Kenny Omega, and the Good Brothers against Team Tommy Dreamer, Sami Callihan, Chris Sabin, and Moose. Sorry, folks, and especially you, Bullock, because I know you're not a big Callis. We know how much you hate Don Callis, but of course, his team finds a way to win. 2.5 stars. The pacing of the match was hurt by the mid-match break, and per usual, you can ignore everything that happened before it. Chris Sabin did the majority of the work, which is smart because Moose is not that kind of worker, and you want to keep Sami Callihan and Kenny Omega away from each other, seeing as we're this close to Slammiversary, and the predictability of this whole thing hurt it as well. 7 out of 10, though. I mean, the wrestling quality was mostly there for this episode, which is a plus. The build to the main event was fine enough, though the pacing for the last hour or so was pretty poor. Overall, it edges into the good show category. Next week on the show, Kimberly and Susan will face Jessica Havoc and Rosemary in the number 1 contenders match for the women's tag team titles. And Kenny Omega and Sami Callihan are going to have a contract signing for their world title match at Slammiversary. So that and much more are coming up this Thursday night on Access TV. So let's get into 205 Live quickly. We had a NXT Breakout Tournament qualifying match. Guru Raj versus Andre Chase. And Andre Chase wins the match, 8 minutes and 26 seconds. Solid, though a little sloppy at times. The finish was good, though. Chase is probably the better choice to move on, as Raj still needs some work, and I'm sure this was just a chance to see what he had. 2-star match. And then in another breakout qualifying match, Desmond Troy against Joe Gacy. Joe Gacy in 8 minutes and 33 seconds. Again, a little sloppy in spots, but with a good ending. Troy showed some good athletic ability, and another big dude that can throw suplexes is fun. Gacy getting the win is kind of surprising, as I figured Troy would get the nod here, but perhaps they want to bring home along slowly. Fine as well. About another maybe 2 or 3 stars. 6 out of 10. It was not really an episode of 205 Live. Anyone expecting what we usually get will be sadly disappointed. What we got was 2 basic matches to get some new blood in NXT. And for WWE officials to see what they have with these guys. There is nothing to see here as far as in-ring work, but if you want to see some new faces that could end up as being players in NXT, this is where you start. Solid 6 out of 10. So that will put the bow on this edition of this special Tuesday night edition of Ridiculously Raw. We want to thank you all so very much for tuning in as always. We will be back with you tomorrow night. We got a big show tomorrow night. A very exciting edition of Wednesday Night Mayhem, as we will be reviewing not only NXT's Great American Bash, which, spoiler alert, great show. I'll let you know there was only one bad thing on this show. Just one bad thing. Other than that, with the exception of that one thing, everything else was great. Only one thing sucked. That's it. Wish I could say that about Monday Night Raw, but that's another story. And on top of that, we will also get into what will be the most anticipated AEW Dynamite in recent memory, as they will finally be outside of Daly's Place. They will be on the campus of the University of Miami, the Hurricanes, the James L. Knight Center, for the first AEW Dynamite in front of real fans in a real building since March of 2020, since just before the pandemic started. So it's going to be a very emotionally charged night for AEW. That's all I can say on that. You know they're going to really bring the A game tomorrow, no doubt. And then Thursday night on Strictly Sports, we will announce the rest of the Major League Baseball All-Star rosters. Last week we talked about the starters. Thursday night we're going to get into the reserves. We'll talk about the reserves and the full rosters for both the American League and National League. We may recap the Stanley Cup Finals, but that's only if the Tampa Bay Lightning win the Stanley Cup tomorrow night in front of the home fans. If not, then we'll have to push it back to a future show, probably the following week. But what we do know is we will, in the main event, it will be our preview of the NBA Finals between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Phoenix Suns. So we'll get into all that on Thursday. And then Friday night, we got the Cerebral Smack Talk with good old MF Michael Fletcher, as we will have Friday Night SmackDown, the final SmackDown inside the Thunderdome before they get to go back and before they start the fans. When the fans come back, SmackDown will be that very first show. So this will be their last show in the Thunderdome, and we'll have to wait and see. So that's it. So until tomorrow night for Wednesday Night Mayhem, this is Anthony Florio here. for the Phenom Michael Bullock, and in spirit, good old MF Michael Fletcher, the First Lady of the Wrestling Forum, the Twisted Angel, Dee Dee Woodson, and always and forever, the Yankee Messiah 401, Derek Ferreira. You know the routine, everybody. Thumbs up. Talk to you later. Yeah, throw it up, Fortune 4 style. Bye for now, my friends. God bless. Be good to each other. Have a blessed Wednesday, and until tomorrow night for Wednesday Night Mayhem over on MF's channel, BraceFan95. You've been watching the special Tuesday night edition of Ridiculously Raw right here on the Tone 25 on YouTube and StreamYard.com. And remember, my friends, no matter what anyone tells you, beyond anything else, wrestling is indeed actually real. For everybody who has been a part of this one, for now, Anthony Floyo, so long. Bye, everybody. Bye.